Hey, what's up? It's Jared with State of Tech. Before you go out and buy a new iPhone, I want you to consider these 5 things that I think you should do instead of buying a new iPhone 11. Now, before I go too far into this video, I do want you to know that I did pre-order the iPhone 11. I always use this YouTube channel as my excuse to make sure that I'm getting the latest and greatest technology that's available, but there's some experiences that I've had over the last 48 hours with making some updates to my phone that led me to think, you know what, I got a new experience out of my iPhone XS Max and probably wouldn't necessarily need to go to an iPhone 11. So I wanted to say that I do have an iPhone 11 that's going to show up sometime today, but at the same time, I've had such a good new experience out of my iPhone that I currently have, it begs me to wonder why I necessarily need to upgrade every year. Now, I know the new iPhone has some cameras on it that are new and a few little things like that, but it's not really that big of a jump from the current iPhone that already exists, which wasn't much of a jump from the iPhone before that. When the iPhone X came out and it didn't have any buttons on the front, it was the Face ID unlock. Then the iPhone XS Max came out, and there were some little improvements there. And now with the iPhone 11, really the only major improvements that are super noticeable are the cameras. So if you're kind of scratching your head as to whether or not you should buy another device, I think maybe this video might kind of help you reconsider and think about doing something else with your money this year. So the first thing is that with your device, you should just download iOS 13. Maybe you've done this already, but I wanted to talk about why just downloading iOS 13 to my phone gave me a new experience on my device. Now, normally this doesn't happen. Normally when I download, when I downloaded iOS 12 or iOS 11 or iOS 10, it's like, okay, cool, I've got the new operating system and maybe there's a new little feature or something like that. But there was enough things visually that changed and that were able to change on this phone with iOS 13 that it gave me a new kind of feeling and experience. And I've just really enjoyed my phone the last 48 hours using it with iOS 13. So here's the things that gave me that new experience. Obviously, just installing iOS 13 didn't really change the experience much, but these things did. The first thing is that I switched over to dark mode because I absolutely love dark mode on the different devices that I have. I just like that level of contrast better. Having the darker screen with the lighter words, it makes it easier for me to see. I don't know, I just like that experience better. And when I switched that over on my phone, all of a sudden the contrast that everything had was different. The icons looked different, the backgrounds looked different, different screens appeared differently because dark mode is so well integrated in the iPhone with a lot of the other apps. A lot of apps that I was used to using had different experiences as well. And yes, saying just changing it from light to dark mode, doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but it gave me a different experience and it gave me a little bit of that feeling that I typically get when I get a new device and start kind of swiping around and experiencing the differences of those devices. So changing to dark mode, but what I also did was change the wallpaper on my phone. The background that I had on my phone didn't look as good to me with dark mode, so I decided to change that wallpaper to a different image, and that also added to the experience because that wallpaper was a little bit better of a combination with dark mode than the wallpaper that I had before. Now, I also reorganized a few of my apps because I'll talk about another thing in the next reason, but I reorganized my apps a little bit, which I kind of found a little bit better organizational structure for myself. And one of the things that I continue to do is have my first home screen is completely blank with the exception of the 4 icons down at the bottom. And I like having that way so that I can see my wallpaper, my image that I have on the back of my display, and then I can just swipe over once and get to my apps. It's also less distracting. I just access the main apps that I need down at the very bottom row. And if I need access to the rest of my apps, I can either swipe over, or of course I could just swipe down and do a quick search for whatever app I'm looking for. So if you want to know how to make your entire first home screen blank, I have a tutorial on how to do that. I'll link to it in the card and down below as well. And if you have any questions, you can ask me down in the comments. So those things were great because it gave me a new visual experience with my phone, which I think, the phone itself, holding the phone, the shape, the size of the phones are not really that much different these days. So it's really about the visual experience. And the iPhone XS Max, the XS, like any iPhone that's getting iOS 13, and I'll make sure to provide a link to a video where I talk about which devices are getting iOS 13. That's going to give your device a whole new experience. And that's going to maybe give you a little bit of that feeling that you might need to, just feel good about the fact that there are new devices coming out and you decided to sit one out this year. So the next thing is try Apple Arcade. Now, iOS 13 comes with 1 month free of Apple Arcade. It's $4.99 a month. It's a new subscription service from Apple where they're trying to get us to pay monthly for access to apps, to games, rather than paying for the game itself. And I kind of like the idea because it gives me the ability to play more games, especially whereas I have to really decide, do I want to spend $1 or $2 or $3 on that game? And so maybe I choose not to. But because I'm paying for the subscription service and Apple Arcade, I get access to a lot more games, and it's giving me a new experience. Plus, I don't know what it is about Apple Arcade. I think it's just that these games were somebody very smart curated the games that were going to be part of Apple Arcade first. These games are fun. Some of them are brand new games that didn't exist before, and these games are a lot of fun, and I've just really enjoyed my experience with Apple Arcade. And so I think that it's a great opportunity to, give your phone a new breath of life, just because there's new games that are available. There's this new platform called Apple Arcade, and it just seemed fun. And you get a month of it for free, and then you can turn it off after that if it's not something that does it for you. Number 3 is to get a new case for your phone. Now, in the first point, I talked about how the shape and the size of these phones aren't changing too much. If you put a case on your phone, it definitely can give you a new experience. I've got a case video coming out for the iPhone 11 where I talk about the top 5 cases for it, but I also do this for pretty much every other device, and so you can go and look back through some of my earlier videos. I've got an iPhone XS Max, XS. I probably have a case video about your phone. But you can also just click on the link below and it'll take you to Amazon, and you can see all the different cases that are available there. One of the nice things about Amazon is that most of these cases, if you buy them, there's free returns. So if you don't like the case, you just put it back in the box and send it back to Amazon for free, and you don't have to worry about it. So free returns is nice, and a new case will give you a new experience with your phone. Combine that with iOS 13, and it's almost like you have a whole new phone because of the new internal software experience and the new external, the way that the phone feels in your hand. Number 4 is actually just to get an Apple Watch instead of a new phone. If you don't have an Apple Watch and you've been holding out because maybe you're not sure if it's going to provide any value, an Apple Watch really is an interesting way of interacting with the stuff that you typically would interact with on your phone. Now, the things that I like about my Apple Watch are the fact that phone calls and notifications show up on my watch, and I don't have to go and grab my phone all the time. So if my phone is in my pocket, or it's in my gym bag, or it's on my desk across the room, my Apple Watch gets the notifications and I can access them there and deal with them there. I could respond to text messages, I can take a phone call on my Apple Watch, and I actually have the LTE Apple Watch, which means I could just leave my phone at home, and then I'll get my phone calls, I'll get my text messages and notifications and everything on my watch as if I had my phone with me. So the LTE version gives me even a little bit more of a range so that I don't have to have my phone with me all the time. So rather than going out and spending, $1,000 or so on a new phone, you can spend as little as $200 on an Apple Watch Series 3, because the Apple Watch Series 3 is still available. It's $200. I've got a link to it down below. And it's got the newest version of Watch OS, and it's a fantastic watch. It's a great experience, and adding that in with the phone that you already have, I think is going to improve your overall experience and maybe give you yet another reason not to go out and just buy a new shiny iPhone for the sake of buying a new shiny iPhone. So number 5 is the obvious reason, which is just to be able to save your money. I mean, we go out and we buy these new devices when in reality the current device that we have is serving our purposes perfectly. We don't necessarily need a new device, especially every single year. And so when we go out and spend that kind of money on a new device and either get into a new monthly payment, extend the monthly payment that we already have, or drop a lump sum on a new device, that's money that we could have done something else with. So, when your car turns another year, you don't necessarily think about going out and getting another car because your car is still serving its purpose. If this shirt that I'm wearing became a year old, as long as the shirt still looks good and is in style, I would continue to wear it. So there are a lot of things in our life that we don't just go out and spend a bunch of new money on because there's a new version of it. We just continue to use it. But for some reason with our phones, we feel the need to go out and get new versions all the time. So instead of spending that money, you can save it and do a couple of different things with it. The first thing that I do with my money that I save, that's over and above what I need, of course, to pay for average everyday life expenses, is put a little bit of that money in the stock market. Now, I'm not an investment professional. I'm not here to give you any advice at all on what you should do with your money other than save it, because I think that's fairly basic. But I've been investing in the Robinhood app, which is a free app that lets you buy stock and sell stock. And one of the ways that people make decent money is by investing in the stock market. Like I said, I'm not giving any advice here. This is just an option, and it's something that I do. If you are interested in something like this and you're not a very risky person, you should probably talk to an investment professional or the person that does your taxes or something like that. But if you were going to go ahead and spend $1,000 on a phone, you could buy several shares of Apple stock and then just sit on that stock for a long time. I've heard people have said in the past, like, if you had bought just one share of this stock 10 years ago, you'd have X amount of money. Like one share of the stock was $50 and now the share is worth, crazy amount of money, and you could sell that share and have, $100,000 or something like that. There are things like this that happen in the stock market. Of course, things can go backwards in the stock market, but if you look at the trajectory of where things go, they may go up and down, but there's always some form of up movement. And so my opinion is leaving money in the stock market for a longer period of time. Those stocks will continue to go up. The only time that there would be like a catastrophe is if you invested in a company that just went belly up and bankrupt, which I have done, which is why there's a little bit of risk involved. But it's something else that you can do with your money other than buying a new phone. And I have a link down in the description below for you to Robinhood, and if you use that link, you'll get one free share to a stock, and you can start kind of playing around with the app and see what it's all about. The one free share, you can just let it sit there and see what happens with it over time. You can sell it and trade it for another stock. There's lots of things that you can do, so I recommend just giving that a try and checking it out. So this was 5 things that I think you could do instead of going out and buying a new iPhone. Like I said, I'm feeling a little hypocritical because I did go out and buy a new iPhone, but one of the reasons that I do that is to produce content here and share what I can with all of you. Like making videos like this one. I wouldn't even have had this idea. It wouldn't have came up in my head if I hadn't have had this kind of battle within as to whether or not I should be getting an iPhone 11 when the current versions of the iPhone that were out for the last year are just great. So that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it or found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button so you could be notified when I put out new videos, and I hope to see you back in the next one soon. Take care.